Today on Florida Panhandling, I decided to ride down to Sunny Hills, Florida. Sunny Hills is a planned city in the center of the Panhandle, the development of which was first announced in 1968 by the Deltona Corporation. The city was platted on a 15,000-acre tract of land in central Washington County. There are several freshwater lakes and ponds here, many of which are now surrounded by private homes, which is why I can't really drive up and show you much of them in this video. The most notable thing about Sunny Hills today is that its development didn't exactly pan out. As you're going to see, most of the various roads, streets, boulevards, alleys, cul-de-sacs, it's all pretty much empty. At first, the Deltona Corporation announced that Sunny Hills would be home to shopping centers, hotels, community centers, recreation facilities, and other such structures as would befit a new, modern resort town 30 minutes away from the world's most beautiful beaches. The city was to have 30,000 home sites to house upwards of 75,000 people, a population which would rival other more well-known panhandle cities like Tallahassee or Pensacola. Residential and commercial lot sales began in 1971, and at first the community's development showed promise. Within the first year, over 80 homes had been constructed, and the corporation had earned back a few $1,000,000. Over 10,000 visitors came to the area looking to buy within that first year. However, the development of the community was ill-timed, and when the economy took a downturn after about a year, the sales slowed to a trickle and never really recovered. Nevertheless, there are several hundred people still living here today. There are several clusters of homes next door to each other, which, while riding the empty and largely unmaintained streets, brings a sudden and pleasant change of scenery. For the occasional brief stretch of road, you catch a glimpse of what the original developers had in mind for the community. Neat, well-maintained homes in pleasant, comfortable neighborhoods. Something like the American dream, of course with a distinctly southern flair. Even though the city didn't come to fruition, Sunny Hills is still seen as an established community in the area. There are several neatly constructed churches, a community center and library, the country club and golf course, which you've already seen, and of course there's also several good lakes for fishing, swimming, boating, jet skiing, and whatnot. Matter of fact, when I was growing up, Boat Lake was the place to go swimming. I mean, we'd load up and make a whole day of it, and it was my favorite place to go and cool off. Anyway, with all the empty streets around here, there's plenty of outdoor recreation space. Matter of fact, while riding around today, something I noticed were piles of mostly fresh horse poop, which, obviously means someone had been riding around just before I rode through the area. I also saw a random car parked in one of the empty streets, doing what, I don't know, and it's usually better not to be nosy about such things. Just keep on passing by. This is also a good area, oddly enough, to teach teenagers how to drive because you don't run into much traffic at all on these empty roads, not to mention the fact that the shoulders are relatively clean and clear of obstacles, to run off and hit. Of course, this is also an area where questionable activities can and often do take place. Not that I'm trying to give anybody any ideas or anything. But with all the craziness going on in the world right now, and with social distancing currently being the norm for most of our lives, it was nice to be able to get out of the house on this absolutely beautiful afternoon and come down here and drive around. It's a good feeling to have the opportunity to explore a unique spot. It almost feels normal. So as you've already seen, I've time-lapsed through much of the area, but just to show how sparse it is, I decided to break the law for a little bit here and ease over into the other lane for just a minute. Now, I know it's not setting a good example, but come on, it's not like I'm going to cause any problems out here. I mean, there's nobody around here at all. Back into the normal lane, though. Now, as we speed back up and make our way back around, I wanted to slow down and take a look at this little church that we passed by earlier. It's a beautiful little Presbyterian church here on the right side of the road. but someone was actually walking her dog up ahead, and I didn't want to get in the way, so I boarded and kept on going. It's real easy to get lost back through here if you're not familiar with the area. I mean, heck, it's easy to get lost if you are familiar with it. Here's one of those little pockets of civilization tucked away back here that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Like I said before, it almost starts to feel like a normal suburban neighborhood until you pass through, and then it becomes the middle of nowhere again. I mean, you start to think, what if? What if Sunny Hills had developed like it was planned? What if it had become the home to over 75,000 residents? What if it had grown into the resort town that the developers hoped for? I mean, the area I grew up in would certainly have been different if it had. Imagine the schools that might have been here. This could even have become the county seat and center of industry for the whole area. Of course, the folks who live here now are probably glad it hasn't quite turned out that way. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they enjoy their community and maybe even would like to see it grow. But at the same time, you can't help but think that the folks who live here probably like it for what it is as opposed to what it might have been. By the way, another odd but true fact for you here. There are actually many immigrants from the Eastern European country of Lithuania who are living out their retirements here. Why it's a retirement destination for them, I have no idea. But it is, and they're here. And good people as I understand it too. Sunny Hills is about 20 minutes away from the county seat town of Chipley and about 30 minutes north of Panama City. So the folks here aren't terribly far away from things to do. It's pretty quiet out here, and for a split second the thought crossed my mind, how nice it would be to live in one of these little hidden neighborhoods. But I still have 28 years worth of payments to make on my current home, and I don't plan on moving anytime soon. Anyway, here's the community center / library / sheriff's office here in this good-sized metal building, and we're back out on the streets again. Some of the streets are still fairly well maintained because of the amount of homes on them, but many of the other streets, which were laid out back in the early 70s, have begun to be reclaimed by Florida nature. Some have fared better than others, as you've been able to see. I was really hoping to pull in and get a good shot of Boat Lake, aka my favorite childhood swimming hole. And it's usually open for the season by now, but with social distancing currently in place, I reckon the community leaders decided to close it down until the crisis has passed. So the best I could do was that quick shot as I was turning around back there. And now we make our way out of here and back toward the main road, headed home. Like I said before, Sunny Hills is a really unique spot in the Florida Panhandle, and if I had to describe it in one phrase, I don't know, I guess I'd say it's the place to go if you're in the mood to think about what could have been.